This board would appreciate it. The procedure would be to introduce the case record as the Codes Department has it. We'll do that on the wall here by means of a PowerPoint presentation. I'll present any letters that we've received in support or opposition to a particular case, as well as any correspondence from Metro agencies. At the conclusion of my presentation, the applicant will come first to the table and present their case, along with any persons in support for your case. I've got 4 seats here, so come right up, identify yourself, and make your presentation. After the applicant goes, the opposition will come up, and along with any parties that are also opposed to the case, and you'll come forward and identify yourself and make your presentation. And then after the opposition's done speaking, the applicant will have a chance for rebuttal. The board in their rules provides that cases without opposition, you have 10 minutes to present your case. And as you're sitting there, you'll notice on the shelf a clock that's facing you that'll provide the time that you have remaining for your testimony. It will run as you talk and speak, and it will stop for any questions or your answers to those questions. And then it'll pick up once you're back into testimony. In cases with opposition, both sides of a case, that means both the folks that are for a case and both the folks that are against the case, all have 15 minutes to present their side of the case. Now, that's not per person. It's not per speaker. You don't get 15 minutes a person, but that's 15 minutes for everybody. So if there are multiple people who want to talk today, y'all be sure to work out your time before you get up here. And be nice and share your time with others. After the applicant, as I talked about before, after the opposition is done speaking, the applicant will have a period for rebuttal. Applicants, that rebuttal time comes out of your 15 minutes, okay? It's not extra time. It's what's left of your original 15, so save some time to rebut opposition's testimony. All section numbers that are referred to today come directly from the Metropolitan Zoning Code, which is Title 17 of the Metro Code of Laws and was adopted by the Metro Council and became effective January 1st, 1998, and applies to the entire jurisdiction of Metro government. I'll introduce and make a part of the record the entire zoning code, copy of which is at my desk behind me, and I'll dispense from reading individual sections unless the applicants or opposition request that I read those sections. The zoning code requires that these proceedings are taped. Therefore, it's imperative anyone wishing to address this board to come forward, have a seat at the table, identify yourself, and make your presentation. It should be noted that if it's found that anyone's presented false or misleading testimony to this board that may have affected the board's decision, any approval by this board can be revoked at a later date by means of a show cause hearing. The board will go through all cases set for today's public hearings, and after each case, the board will discuss and vote on that case in front of you. The board is vested with the power to act on the cases as outlined in Section 1740, 180 of the Metro Code of Law. The zoning code requires that 4 members of this 7-member board be present to constitute a quorum. The code also requires that you have 4 affirmative votes to grant your application. That's okay. So meaning if you have a case, and I think we may have some cases today where all of my members can't participate for one reason or another or have a conflict, and you only have 4 members hearing your case today, you must have all 4 votes to grant your case. If you do not have all 4 votes, your case is automatically rescheduled for the next available public hearing, and I believe that is tracking for May the 7th is that hearing. So if you only have 4 people hearing your case and you don't have all 4 yes votes, your case is automatically started over and refiled, and hopefully at that hearing you'll have a full 7-member board to hear your case. If you have 5 members we're only going to have 5 today, so if you have these 5 members present in your case and you fail to get 4 votes today, your case will stay on our agenda for the next 30 days. These 5 members are allowed to change their vote. The 2 members, really 1 member who is not present today, will be allowed to catch up and watch the proceedings on YouTube and read the record and become eligible should he wish to. Our 7th member is a new appointee by the Metro Council on Tuesday night. I don't believe she would be eligible for any tie votes. So
appointed by the mayor and approved by the council. So people always wonder, how do we get here?
How does that happen? For those at home, members of this board serve uncompensated. Their time is devoted citizens here, and they serve 5-year terms and appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. So today I have only 5 members present. Any applicant or aggrieved property owner may request a rehearing within 60 days of this public hearing. We'll have one of those to deal with on our agenda today as well. Further, any applicant or aggrieved property owner may appeal this board's decision, Chancery or Circuit Court, within the same 60 days period. But once 60 days has elapsed after this board's ruling, this board's decision is final. No further action can be taken. If you're an applicant and your case is approved today, it is necessary for you to obtain the permit for which you've applied. You have 2 years from today's date to get your permit for this approval to remain valid. If you do not pull your permit in 2 years, you have to come back to this board and seek reapproval. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases were filed in proper order. Applicants were notified by certified mail as required by the zoning code. Legal ad was published in the Tennessean multiple times for these 3 agendas. And property owners within 300 feet were notified by first-class mail.
And before we get started, I'd like to, tell the audience, especially those who have been waiting to get in front of us, that we're sorry about the recent bad weather, and we're glad that we could kind of fit everything in on our agenda today. And also make note of Joey's last day with Metro tomorrow. So has it really been 19 years?
It has been 19 years.
Wow. So I've been on the board, not 19 years, but a while. And
long time.
It's been a pleasure to serve with you, and you have definitely taken care of the citizens of Nashville. There's a lot of moving pieces with the BZA, with property law and pictures and variances and setbacks and special exceptions. Joey is going to Baker Donaldson to work as a staff attorney over there, and we're very proud of him. And we know you will do well. You have our blessing, and who knows? We might even see you around here sometime.
Well, thank you. I have a feeling I'll probably be back before this board in one capacity or another somewhere down the road.
So well done, Joey.
But it's been a pleasure, and thank you for the kind words. Thank y'all. I appreciate that. Let's see, preliminary announcements. I do have one. I got a couple, actually. Let's start with the first case. Members, we have a case on the front. This agenda that's for you today has all 3 dates in one document. So we'll call this the big agenda. So on that agenda, on the very first page was a case that was deferred, I believe, from the meetings in January to this date, or actually to February the 19th, which we're just now getting into on Lawrence Avenue. And the applicant would like an additional 1 meeting deferral if you are agreeable to it. Are there any parties, and I don't recall in any of the 2 hearings we've had on this case there were any opposition present, but case 2015-9 is seeking to defer to April 2nd. And members, I do need a motion and second agreeing to defer.
I'll move. I'll second it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
So moved.
Okay, case 9 on the top of page 1 is deferred until the meeting of April 2nd. That's the next meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Short meeting, actually, only 2 normally scheduled cases and 2 deferred items, so it'll be on that agenda. The next item, also a deferral. This deferral has been granted by your staff, by me, and zoning administrator. This will be at it's the beginning of the March 5th agenda in your packet. I apologize, I did not number those pages. In hindsight, I probably should have, but a lot going on between these years. But the March 5th agenda, that is the 4 Pant property down on 4th Avenue North. That will be deferred until April 2nd as well. So if you're here for the hotel case that is there at Printers Alley and 4th Avenue, that case will be deferred until April the 2nd as well. It'll be heard at that time. All other information I believe I have listed on the March 5th agenda. Cases you'll see deferred and withdrawn were done so prior to this hearing. And the final item, I have a request from case 30. This will be at the next to last page on our agenda. Today's regular business on 922 Bradford Avenue. The applicant has requested, are you still present, sir? I lost you. There you are. He has requested to withdraw his case. Is that correct from today? Okay. The applicant is going to withdraw case 30, so that case will not be heard today. That case is withdrawn. meaning A, he'll have to be compliant with the code, or B, you can refile at some later date. But that case will not be heard today, case 30. And those are my preliminary announcements there. I do have, I don't have anything on that front. Let me get. My cheat sheet. Okay, the board does have a consent agenda, meaning a board member before today's hearings review the record, all the cases in today's agenda, and if in their opinion the applicant meets the criteria they've requested and they feel that testimony in the case would not alter the material facts, they recommend the case for the remainder of the board for approval. Actually, before I do that, let me, if I could, I'm going to walk through these cases and see. There's a lot of folks here. I know I have 3 agendas going. If there's opposition to any of these cases that I'll call out, if you would, please raise your hand. And just that'll help me kind of gauge our time today. Case 9, of course, we deferred. Is there any opposition present to case 15, the Metro Government at 1630 Harding Place for the fire station on Harding? Okay, seeing none. Case 21, Denny Garrett at 1264 Shine Boulevard. Any opposition to Mr. Garrett's request? Okay, seeing none. Case 23 at 1404 63rd Avenue North, Jim McLean. Any opposition to the case on 63rd? Okay. Case 24B. There's a B there because I accidentally assigned 2 cases the same case number. Oops. So this will be the B case. A will come at another date. Christian Perot at 272 Broadmoor Drive. Is there any opposition to case 24B on Broadmoor? Seeing none. That covers the February 19th agenda. Now March 5th. Again, talked about case 22 is deferred. Case 24 will not be heard today. Case 25 is there opposition present to William Snyder's request at 1210 Hawkins Street. Any opposition present? Okay, seeing none. Case 27, Trent Roselle, 1200 Ashwood. Any opposition present? Okay, seeing none. Case 28, Mr. Gregory Becker at 4410 Nevada Avenue. Any opposition to that case? Okay, seeing none. And now beginning today's agenda, case 2015-29 Brandon McDonald at 1067 2nd Avenue South. Any opposition to the 2nd Avenue South request? Okay, seeing none. Case 30 has been withdrawn. Case 31 Janice Sensing, 900 Knoll Green Court. Any opposition for that case? Okay. And case 32 Family Dollar at 4003 Clarksville Pike. Okay. Nobody's here and opposed everything. Okay, so now we'll get into our consent agenda. As I said, the board member reviews the record in today's cases and they feel that testimony would not alter the material facts. They'll recommend the case for the remainder of the board for approval. Mr. Ewing was nice enough to do the consent agenda, so he has our motion. The following cases have been recommended for consent. Again, if you are in opposition, you've either told me a story that you are not in opposition. Raise your hand, please. We'll move it from the agenda and hear it in its regular order. The first case recommended for consent, and I'm going to take these members to keep my record clean by docket. So the first one for February 19th, case 2015-15 Metro Government, the appellant, 1630 Harding Place, special exception and variances to construct a new fire hall. Again, I'll call last call. Any opposition, case 15? Seeing none. The next case recommended for consent, case 2015-23, Jim McLean at 1404 63rd Avenue North. Variance in the street setback to construct new single-family residences. Any opposition present on case 23? Seeing none. And finally, case 24B, Christian Perot at 272 Broadmoor Drive, change of non-conforming use in R10. Any opposition present on Broadmoor? Okay, seeing none. Members, if we can get a second to those for February 19th, please.
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Taylor.
Okay, we got a motion and a second for consent. All in favor say aye.
Excuse me, I need to recuse myself even though it's on the consent.
I apologize for that.
That's okay for 15. If we can do those as 2 separate motions.
Okay, so let's take the first motion up without case 15. I'll move the case without 15.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye. Okay, and now I move case number 15 from our original February 19th agenda to the consent agenda.
All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, I did not call one of those cases. If I did not call your case, we are going to hear that case in its order on this agenda. So if you're here for cases 15 and 23 and 24B, you have been approved.
All from that meeting.
And you are free to go for the February 19th meeting. And as those folks depart, we've got the March 5th agenda. So these are the cases recommended for consent agenda. I actually have no items for the 15th on the March 5th on consent agenda. So guys, if you could take your combos, I appreciate you saying there. Sorry about that. March 5th, I do not have a consent agenda for March 5th, so the cases that have not been called will be heard in its order. Now today's regular business. For March 19th, again, I'll call case 29, Brandon McDonald, 1067 2nd Avenue South, requesting a variance in street setback. Is there any opposition present? Case 29. Okay, seeing none. Case 31, Janice Sensing, 900 Knoll Green Court, requesting a variance in the rear setback for a screen porch addition. Is there any opposition? Case 31. Seeing none. Case 32, Family Dollar, variance in the parking requirements in MUL. That case particularly has already been approved by this board 2 years prior. They are just beyond their 2 years and are actually ready to start construction probably this coming week. But unfortunately, I had to send them back here, and they're seeking reapproval of their case. So any opposition to case 32? Seeing none. Mr. Ewing, your motion's made.
I'll second.
Mr. Taylor, thank you for seconding again.
Okay, a motion to approve the consent agenda for March 5th, was it?
19th.
19th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Ayes have it.
All right, cases 29, 30 is withdrawn, 31, 32 have been approved by this board. You are free to go. For the cases of March the 19th, those have been approved. Okay, final item, last thing on the agenda, last page, rehearing request. Under this board's rules, applicants have 60 days to appeal to you for a rehearing request. The applicants are present but cannot address you. You should be in receipt of a letter. I'm going to pass around evidence to you too. This was a case, this was an item A appeal. It dealt with the 25-foot wide lot in this zone district in 45th. The Board of Zoning Appeals, you recall the zoning administrator, we took a position of having to say that essentially that lot was not a buildable lot. This board upheld that interpretation on a vote of 4 agreeing that it's not a buildable lot, and 2 saying that it was. The 4 that said it were not a buildable lot were Ms. Chappell, Mr. Harper, Mr. King, Mr. Taylor. So I mentioned your 4 names specifically because this rehearing request motion and approval must come from one of you 4.
Do we hear from the party? And Joey, I don't think we had that in our
You do not. Let me get that for you.
I know I'm not on one of the 4, but just procedurally, I wanted to know. Are we going to hear from Mr. Dean?
You would not, actually. In a typical fashion, you would not.
So this is the famous 1870s map during the Kercheval administration of Nashville.
I have watched the proceedings.
Suitable for framing.
It is very nice.
Now, a typical course of business, I have, you guys have not seen.
No.
Okay. You may, in extraordinary cases, suspend your rules or change them. This might be one you might want to. I apologize. I thought you'd.
Can we suspend our rules and hear from Mr. Dean?
Got a motion?
Yes.
Any second to that motion? Suspend the rules here, Mr. Daniels.
Of why he wants a rehearing? Especially considering we're
I'll-
just getting his
I'll-
letter right now.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules.
Okay, we need to vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
One more time, Mr. King.
We have a motion to suspend the rules. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, I have it. We suspend the rules and hear from Mr. Dean.
Mr. Dang, if you'll come forward, which you have. In the normal procedure, of course, they would have had this a little sooner, and that's my mistake. I apologize for that. If you would, please cover, as you did in your letter, I guess cover only the items, not arguing the case.
Right.
Cover only items in which you believe there's new evidence to warrant a rehearing.
Really, it was very simple. At the original hearing back on January 15th, there were several comments about showing that there was a concern by the members, several members of the board, that these 25-foot lots may have been pasted together, basically, and conveyed only in 50 or 100 lots, so that you'd have 2 or 3 lots conveyed together, which would have kind of undercut our argument that they were 25-foot lots from the very beginning. And what we did is, on the map, you'll see colored-in spaces. We didn't go to the extent of covering every lot, but you'll see several of them are highlighted in yellow. These are lots that were conveyed singly as 25-foot lots originally. And I also put in a couple of deeds for lots 307 and 309, which were conveyed singly. I could have done them all, but I didn't figure the board would care that much about it. That was the new evidence. I don't know that from our position, we didn't think that whether they could be conveyed like that or not was really important. That's why we didn't go into this the first time. But since several members of the board did mention that, I thought it was worth bringing it back and demonstrating that they were, in fact, conveyed as 25-foot lots, at least 8 to 10 of them, and probably more. So that's the whole thing.
So, would we reopen the case, Joy, or would the motion be to rehear the case?
The motion would be to, Channel 3 guys want me on the mic, sorry. The motion would need to come from one of the 4 who voted with the zoning administrator that you believe there's enough evidence to grant a rehearing request. What will happen is we will set that for the next available public hearing cycle should you approve the motion, and we'll just re-advertise it and do it over. So.
Okay, so does anybody that voted want to change their vote?
Well,
I
I think what I'm to do is, based on I voted against last time, and now we have new evidence. So, given that my vote was not a strong vote last time, I would move to rehear if that's the appropriate motion.
Yeah, I voted against it last time, and I will say that while what I see isn't on the surface, because we haven't reheard it, compelling enough for me to change my vote, I think it's enough to rehear it. But I will say that I think that this is the kind of, and my issue was precedent, that I think it's bigger than just this lot. I think that there are a whole lot of issues at play. If you do have a 25-foot lot, are you also going to come and ask for variances, because you have a narrow lot, which I would not be looking favorably upon necessarily. But I do think that there's enough to say we should probably address it again, because it is a pretty impactful and serious thing. So I will second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to rehear the case. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So we'll rehear.
Case is
Mr. Dean,
approved for
we'll see you
rehearing.
soon. Thank you for bringing this map. Very interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. We'll notify you of the hearing date. We will, members, keep this case number for purposes of record. Should it need to go to court, we'll keep case 12. So when it comes up, it will be case number 12 then as well. Thank you all for suspending yours. Thanks, sir. Okay. Let's see, where are we? We are, I I believe, ready for our first case. And our first case today that will be heard, let me see who all is present. Case 21 is the case that we have up first before us, Mr. Denny Garrett. Mr. Garrett, you're present. I see you here. And Mr. Garrett's case is the case from February the 19th. This is page 2 of our agenda. And Mr. Garrett, I'll go through the photographs and such and explain to them, and then I'll turn it over to you. Are there any parties here opposed to case 21 that are present? Okay. Seeing none, Mr. Garrett, you'll have 10 minutes to present.
Okay. I did this. This is what the actual size comparison. If
I got you. And I'll get this passed over to them just as soon as I'm done. But Mr. Garrett is the appellant. Russell Wilkie, the owner of the property at 1264 Cheyenne Boulevard. Rick, if you'll hit that button there. Thank you. Unless I did something wrong. There it is. We bored our projector to sleep. Now it's on. Can y'all see that on your monitors? Just fine. Okay. This is a variance request in the side street setback of Canton Pass. Canton is the street that is on the south or the bottom of the subject site you see surrounded in red. If you'll hit the next slide, please, or letter N. This is the aerial photograph of the subject property approximately a year ago. And one more time, this is the nature of the request is, Mr. Garrett, if I recall, we talked, and it's been some time since we spoke about this. If I recall, you either contracted with a contractor to obtain a permit to construct this storage building. On the site plan you see it says wooden shed. That's the location of the structure. Mr. Garrett employed a contractor, not to take from his case. Thought he came and got a permit, did not come and get one, and unfortunately was cited by the Property Standards Division to obtain a permit in which we discovered he's violating the setback. That is 30 feet required off Canton Pass, and he's about 16 feet to the closest point. He's given me, and I'll pass to you all, a copy of where he can move it, relocate it in the rear yard, kind of what that would look like, and I'll let him discuss that further during his time. Go ahead, next slide. These are looking from Cheyenne Boulevard is the house fronts on Cheyenne. So there's the structure you see on the left-hand side at Canton Pass. Next slides. And then these are the adjoining houses on either side of him. And next photograph. And we'll leave it at this photo. This is the location of the structure. Again, Mr. Garrett files this appeal seeking a variance to allow the structure to remain where it is. And with that, I have...
How long has the structure been there?
I'll let him... Okay. He'll cover it during his time. With that, I'll turn over... Mr. Garrett, to your right is that clock. You'll have 10 minutes to present your case. And you've got your button turned on there, so you're ready to talk.
Okay. Thank you for hearing this. We purchased this house August 29th of last year. And for my birthday, my roommate built me the shop building. I do woodworking as a, not even really a hobby, just as something to give me something to do. Both my roommate and I are disabled. And so we contracted with a company out of Murfreesboro. And I called them, we placed the order, everything was whatever, square, whatever. And when he came out to construct the shop, he asked me where I wanted to put it, and I specifically said to him, if it's okay to go here, this is where I want it.
Said here, what do you mean by that for the record?
At that location, where it's at.
Right next to that street, Canton?
Yes, sir.
In between Canton and your house?
Yes, sir. And he measured from the house to where the edge of the shop is now, and he told me that there was no problem, it could go there. So I automatically assumed when I contracted with them and paid them over $5,000 that they would get a building permit. They never told me they would not get one. And the previous house I had a shop built. the contractor did pull the permit. So I just assumed that this contractor would as well. And they built it, and then they, about 2 weeks later, I talked to an electrician about wiring it in for power, and he told me that I would have to pull the building permit for the electricity. That's when we found out that there had never been a permit pulled for the construction of the shop. We have a large lot, as you can see by your map, but the problem with the lot is most of the backyard is taken up by driveway and patio. The way the lot slopes at the back, it would make it really difficult to put the shop back there because basically I have a 50 by 51 foot backyard. But then at the closest part to the patio, it's 50 by 46 because of the slope. And then another reason for the initial wanting to put it where it's at right there, as I said, both my roommate and I are disabled, and our backyard is not level. And it would, the only place to put it, as I did on that thing, it would eliminate my backyard. And we have 3 dogs as well, and there just wasn't any other place that I could see to put it. It is 16 foot away from Canton Pass. The neighbors I've talked to all said they had no problem with it. So, unfortunately, none of them were able to come today. And that's all I have.
So was the building constructed on-site or?
Yes, sir. It was a kit. They, they just brought the pieces and put it together.
And you're saying if there were a place to relocate it on the property, you would have access issues into the building, the shed
Yes, sir.
building.
There are days when I've had 53 back surgeries. I live with constant pain, and there are days when I cannot even walk. And on those days, I'm in a wheelchair. And there's a wheelchair ramp from the driveway into the shop today. But if I put it anywhere else, there's nowhere to put a wheelchair ramp in to get into it. So I'd be basically denied access to it for the days when I'm in a chair.
All right, thank you.
What will this building be used for? You said it was a shop.
Yes, sir. I just do, minor woodworking, like, I build small bookcases or floating shelves, picture frames, things like that. And, this is where my saws and, where I do my sanding and things of that nature. And then I store my, garden equipment, like shovels and rakes and things like that in there.
I must say that you have a nice property there, and I don't understand that you want and need for having that there, or maybe a want more than a need. I don't see that does anything to the benefit of your property or your neighbor's property there. So I'd have to hear a little more compelling reason to leave that where it is right now.
Well, let me ask you, sir, and just educate me if you would. Is that type of building movable, or will it now?
Not really.
Okay.
It would have to be torn down and then rebuilt.
Okay. So whether you move it, so you're saying you'd have to have an entirely new kit built in the backyard.
Yes,
they could
ma'am.
not move this structure.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Did you talk to the company that installed it? What did the company that installed it have to say about not pulling a permit and putting you in the situation you're in now?
They said that they have on their website a declaration that the customer has to pull the building permit. It is on their website, buried at the bottom of their frequently asked questions page.
Was this more than $25,000?
The building?
Yes.
No, sir, it was 5.
Okay. Oh, that's
5,000,
right.
a little over 5,000.
Are they a licensed contractor?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to tell us the name of the contractor?
I don't think that's necessary for the hearing.
And like I say, it is posted on their website, but it's at the bottom of their frequently asked questions page. And I didn't have a need to go to their FAQ page because, all the questions I had, she answered when I talked to her on the phone. And she never, stated while I was talking to her on the phone that we had to pull a permit. Granted, I never asked her if they would. I was just operating off of former experience where the contractor did pull the permit.
Joey, I'm sorry, can you show us the aerial photograph again? So looking at the aerial photograph, you talked about the topography being hilly in the back. Could you describe that?
It's not hilly, it slopes. It slopes from where that the left top corner is. It slopes from there down toward the house, and then from the fence in the middle, which is no longer there, the fence has been moved to the edge of the patio and the driveway. But it slopes from there toward the north end of the house. So it kind of slopes down like this towards the house.
You had given us a drawing.
Yes, sir.
And so what would be, I don't know if everybody else has seen it, but what would be the hardship of putting the building where you have
I
it
basically wouldn't have any backyard left. And I've got 3 dogs, and I basically would lose my entire backyard. And the only 3 trees that are in the backyard are all small, and they would have to come out as well in order to put the shop back there.
How many of your neighbors did you talk to, sir? Can you show us on this aerial who you talked to?
Right across the street, Miss Aldeers, and then right behind me, I don't know Marvin's last name, and I talked to the neighbor on the north side, Andrew. Now, the house on the other side of Canton Pass, on the other corner, the person I talked to, it's a duplex that's rented out, and the person I talked to was the only occupant at the time, and they've since moved out.
Okay.
So, would you say, or are you saying that relocating this anywhere else on the property, in the allowable area that you could put this,
Yes, sir.
that you could not make the building accessible?
It would be accessible for the days I'm not using a wheelchair. It would not be accessible to my roommate at all, because it's the backyard is.
I'm sorry, was your,
My roommate has cerebral palsy.
are they in a wheelchair? Or?
No, sir, he's not in a wheelchair yet. He's still able to walk, but he can't lift his feet, and
Right.
the way the backyard, it's a clay yard with a lot of holes. And every time we put dirt into the holes, it washes away. So he wouldn't be able to walk across the yard to get to the shop.
Okay. And you said that it was and I'm sorry if I'm repeating, it's when you went to verify the permit or to get a permit for the electrical work
Yes, sir.
that you found out there wasn't a permit for that?
Yes, sir.
So you did try to get a permit at some point, just not for the building itself?
Yes, sir. I thought that had been done by the contractor who built it.
Right.
If you did put the shop in the backyard, are the tools you use loud? Do you have large
No, ma'am.
machine tools?
Anything else you want to add? Any questions? close the public hearing. Your thoughts?
Well, I realized what we are charged to do here with regard to a variance request, but I also think it's important to consider that taking the statements as true, which we are charged to do, there is not opposition from the neighbors. The signs were posted, and we don't have anybody here complaining that this has impacted negatively their property values. I would be inclined, for that reason, to grant the request. That's my thought.
I agree too, and if, I know in the variance, we're charged with finding a hardship, and then there's also the extraordinary circumstances clause in there. And I think that when we consider handicap accessibility, which is a federal statute, that I think that gives us pretty decent footing as the appellant is testifying that it would be inaccessible in other locations on the property.
I agree with both of my committee members, both very different but correct arguments about accessibility and even no opposition. And, this normally if the neighboring property would have opposed it, I would have probably thought a little bit differently, but, I agree, and I think this is fine.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, and given this circumstance, I'd agree, and I think, how does it pass along to future owners? And also, kind of wondering if it is approved, if it has a condition that is not able to connect to the home, so you can't expand your home into that spot. And then it's also, I know it was built there, and yet it does appear to be portable. I'd almost, I'm almost, like I said, I don't mind that particular storage building given the circumstances, but I'm a little wary of, does someone come and build a 12 by 24 foot garage there because, at some point down the road, because we gave them permission to have an accessible wood shop. And so I don't know if maybe this is a legal question, but what, can we say that, this specific building is approved?
Yeah, I think what David is asking John Michael is, can we limit the approval to this particular owner?
Conditions can be used typically, and the board has talked some about ADA-based accessibility as one of the bases by which you might consider granting a variance in this instance. Obviously, there's no guarantee from one owner to the next, whether that be 5 years from now, 50 years from now, 500 years from now, that the next owner would necessarily have those particular sets of needs, namely with the accessibility. You can place conditions. That's the shortest answer. As to this particular building and accessibility as the basis for the variance, a little less clear.
David's other concern was to prevent them from building a garage in between this structure and the house, or adding on to the house.
Well, or just, if we just say you've got a 12 by 24 foot building that you can build on this spot, then how do you?
Could we not say that?
Basically, I would be happy, and you can help me with the wording, if it were this building and this building was not ever allowed to be attached to the home.
You could do this site plan certain.
Yeah.
Site plan certain.
Yep, this building.
Okay, and then I'm comfortable with a site plan certain motion.
I have a concern, though, about, does this open the door for another neighbor to say, oh, you let them put a shed building out in the side yard, or essentially the front yard? What's going to keep another neighbor from saying, well, you let them do that, why can't I put one in my front yard?
Well, what I hear is topography of the backyard and
accessibility
and a unique accessibility issue. And I think if someone, we've had, well, I don't know if we've seen accessibility decks in the front, and I
Ramps
think we
to
have
front
had ramps
porches.
in the front that we had to give exceptions to make them accessible, and that came out from the front setback kind of thing. I think, to me, it's almost unique enough that if it were the exact same set of circumstances and there were no other compelling reasons, then you might have to say, well, and the neighbors didn't object. I mean, that's another component here, that the neighbors aren't objecting to it, so.
Well, and I think as far as a precedent goes, it's really not a precedent because Joy would send all those cases back to us anyway. It's not like this. It's not a precedential case in that once we say this, it's carte blanche to anybody that comes to get a permit that's in a setback that says, oh yeah, we had that case once. So I mean, I think we're okay on the precedent issue.
Well, the one thing that I wasn't sure that I heard was that he could possibly make another route if you moved it in the back. You could put a driveway, a sidewalk to get rid of the hole in the ground problem. Is that what keeps your roommate from getting to the room? Well, if you had a concrete sidewalk and if it were moved, could you do that? I'm not saying, maybe it might cost you a little money, but I'm saying, could you do that?
Well, I mean, with Russell's condition, it's difficult to say because he has problems. I mean, any kind of incline, he has a problem going up. And I can't say that the incline would not be enough to cause him a problem. I can't say that it would be enough to cause him a problem. But he has problems walking up, even the sidewalk outside this building. He would have problems getting up that incline because of the steepness of the incline. I can't say for sure one way or the other that it would or would not cause him a problem.
Can we go back to the photograph?
And we wouldn't really be able to tell that until we had the concrete poured.
So now he's able to come essentially level?
Yes, sir, for now. I mean, he does have cerebral palsy. His condition continues to deteriorate over time. And I will add this, that if the building is allowed to stay there, there is going to be lattice work skirting put under the bottom of it. It's not going to be open like that.
Can you put some planting or something around and make it not look like a shed sitting out in the yard? Can you,
Yes, sir. I've
screen
already
it
got
somehow?
plans on putting a flower bed around the corner. But everything's been put on hold until we get your answer.
With a condition that you would landscape that and make that a little more acceptable to the presence for the house and where it is, I would support it.
Thank you.
Make a motion. Somebody.
Go ahead. I don't have my book here, my cheat sheet.
Well, I'll move that we grant the variance and that we find, due to the topography and the exceptional situation of accessibility, that we approve. Joey's going to have a fun time sussing this out, and that this variance is site plan specific to the site plan submitted for this case.
And that
And I'm sorry, and that the base of the shed be covered and landscaping provided. Is that vague yet specific enough?
I have 1 day to figure it out. It's someone else's decision.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All contingent on Joey figuring it out. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So passes.
You adopt case
Thank you.
21 is approved with the conditions as listed.
Thank you
Thank
for
you all.
being here today.
No, I mean, it's just, you think that looks good sitting on that neighborhood?
Okay, our next case 2015-25, Mr. William Snyder is the appellant. Mr. Michael Garrigan will be civil engineering. Come on up, Mr. Garrigan. There are no parties present opposed to any cases that are remaining on our agenda. Lot 1 Partners LLC, the owner of the property located at 1210 Hawkins Street, that is the property you see here in red, requesting a special exception in street setbacks for the right and left side of the front building in the RM20 UZO district to construct 2 new 3,200 square foot 2-story condos and a 1,400 square foot 2-story 1-unit building. Referred to the board under section 1712-035A. Let me read that to you. This is a not a variance but a special exception. 1712-035, the applicant needs to demonstrate, and this board needs to find, that the proposed development does not create an adverse impact on adjacent properties nor detract from a strong pedestrian-friendly environment. That is your standard of review for this case. Next slide will be the aerial photograph of the subject property. You see on the west side of this property is a multifamily development built sometime in the past. This neighborhood has several, as you'll see heading west on Hawkins there. You got a triplex the next block over. Other multifamily developments there. This is just west of 12th Avenue South. It is in the RM20 zone district. Next slide, please. This is the proposed development. Again, I talked about in the opening, there's 2 2-unit condos. Those are the front buildings on Hawkins. That's where the street setback variance is, or on these front 2 units. At the bottom of the slide, the building that's on the north side of this, it's actually fine, complies with everything. That's the 1-unit building that's on the end. So 3 total, is that 5 total units, is it not, Mr. Gary?
And what is this?
3 total units, excuse me.
What is the setback?
The setback on the rear? The front setback proposed is 15 feet for which you see unit 2 that's there. The zoning code calls for, in RM20, to be a 30 from center line, so you'd be looking at 55 from center. This one is sitting approximately 40 feet from center. So about 15 feet closer to that. And of course, again, the standard which you're reviewing it under the pedestrian-friendly environment. Next slide shows the subject property as it exists today. It's currently a single-family residence in this RM20 district. And then the next slides will show the adjoining properties. That in the aerial photograph, I think you saw a 6 or 7 unit building just west of the site, and then the single-family structure to the east. And then these at the intersection of 12th and Hawkins is a church that's located there, and then the multifamily developments west.
And it's zoned for 3 units?
Yes, sir, it is. It's actually zoned at a density of 20 units per acre. Okay, that's all. We'll go back to the site plan and leave that up. All right, again, a special exception under 1712-035 for street setback for the 2 units out front. That's our case record, and Mr. Garrigan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Joey. My name is Michael Garrigan. I'm a civil engineer with Dale & Associates, 516 Heather Place, representing the owner and the developer of this property. Just to paint the picture really quick, the property to the west, the existing multifamily, it was rezoned to an SP last year. The SP has a build-to zone, not a setback, a build-to zone of 5 to 15 feet, so they're required to be within 5 and 15 feet. The plan is what we showed on our drawing, just scaled off of theirs, shows that their closest unit to our property at 13.25 feet, and then the dwelling existing to the east has been surveyed at 20 feet. So simply put, what we're trying to do is just transition between two projects. Starting at 13, then we would go 15, 17, 20 exists to the east. The property is zoned for 3 units. It's actually like 3.2 or something like that. If we were to have to adhere to the 30-foot setback, which I think it's 30 foot once you do the math, Joey, what that would force the development to do is almost turn the unit sideways to probably face to the west and then park them in front in that 30-foot setback, and I don't think that any of us would agree that is a better alternative than this. So I guess our stance is, through the special exception, we have to show that we're not adversely impacting neighboring properties, which we feel like by transitioning between two setbacks, that's as harmonious as it can be, and that we have no impact or improve the pedestrian-friendly nature, which by allowing the buildings to scoot closer to Hawkins Street, obviously then you can park behind them, which improves the pedestrian connectivity.
So you're asking on a special setback instead of a variance because there's no obvious hardship?
Correct. It's a special exception, so a hardship is not part of the equation. It's just what's outlined through.
Did you see the planning department's recommendations?
Yes, sir, I did. And we're in agreement with all of those.
So they would conform with all of those if those were conditions on?
Yes, sir. They're recommending approval with the 8 conditions. They're pretty typical with like an SP, not allowing vinyl siding, which we're fine with. Front porches, we're fine with. Raised foundations, those kinds of things. And I think most of those are framed to ensure that the view shed from Hawkins Street maintains that pedestrian-friendly feel.
So how tall are these? And what's going on with the site? It seems a little unclear how you access all these units vehicularly and as a pedestrian.
Well, the code's going to maximize their height at 30 feet. The architecture hasn't been finalized as of yet, but the access comes via the rear alley. And the Unit 3 has a side-loaded garage, and Units 1 and 2 have rear-loaded garages, 2 cars each.
I thought the alley was unimproved. Is it accessible?
The alley is improved, but obviously it's not improved to the current standards, so we'll have to widen it and dedicate right-of-way similar to most. It's hard to tell with the tree line there. But the SP adjacent to the west is also proposing to utilize that alley for their access as well.
So is the site flat-ish?
Flat-ish is a good statement. So we've got about 2 feet of fall back to the alley, which for Middle Tennessee standards.
So you could have up to 30 feet at your setback line is what you're saying?
That's correct.
And how tall are the other houses? The neighboring houses?
I'm not positive of
Are they
that.
like 1 story?
The house, there's the one to the east, and then the SP to the west is approved, I believe, for probably 3 stories and 45 feet, but I can't speak to that for a fact. But I would say that the height is what the height is. And if the 3 units were reconfigured to adhere to the 30 feet, they would be the same height.
Any other questions?
So I'm just curious, the number 3 unit, all the units vehicularly are accessible from the alley. So is there any pedestrian access to the 3rd house or the 3rd unit from Hawkins?
From Hawkins, there could be. It's not depicted on the plan.
Joey, can we see the aerial again?
Those larger structures you saw on the photograph are that parcel to the southwest right here.
It's amazing from an engineering standpoint how much you got on this fairly small piece of property. 3 units, 6 cars. Guess that's why they hire you.
Yeah, I'm still curious. How does anyone find the third unit, like the police or the ambulance?
They have an address.
So you pull up to the address and you're like, there's only 2 units here. It just seems awfully
From the standpoint of the zoning code, Mr. Harbour, actually, Unit 3 is essentially a single-family residence for us. You notice the driveway width's 20 feet. To us, it's a house, so we're fine as far as, it's really from what we look at, on the whole, it's multifamily, but really what you got is a duplex and a single family at the back.
So, yeah, there's a house on the alley.
Right. So from a building code perspective, we didn't review it like we would the front building. They'll be permitted separately, and that one at the rear actually will be a little different.
If there are no other questions, we'll close the public hearing. You have anything else to add?
No, sir.
Okay, discussions.
I think this is kind of like last case that, there's no opposition. It seems to be thought out. It's still amazing how much you could fit on such a narrow, tiny lot, though.
We're seeing more and more of that.
You're seeing it all the time. That's density. So.
Well, and one of the things, that I started to think a lot more about is these special exceptions will continue to arise, are the 2 criteria that we were asked to look at in terms of, deterring from the adjoining properties. And, I think the existing dwelling at 1208 is one that you could say, well, it definitely impacts them. I don't think it has a negative impact on the multifamily next to it, and that's why I asked for the aerial. I think the aerial photograph does show a fairly predominant presence of multifamily in the adjacent area, so it doesn't seem inappropriate from the multifamily perspective. I do believe pretty strongly that we should support the Planning Commission and put all 8 of their criteria as criteria for any special exception, especially since the applicant has agreed to that, knowing that the planning staff, is responsible for looking at this with a lot more, hopefully, time and detail than we're given in some cases. So I do have a lot of respect for that, and would ask that if there's a motion that be considered as a criteria.
I actually agree with that. They're very reasonable things that the Planning Commission has noted related to porches and sizes and sidewalks and windows, and so yes, it all makes sense.
Given the conditions that we are charged with finding harmful to neighboring properties, light and air, and given the fact that we don't have any elevations or real understanding of the massing other than it might be 30 feet of those 3 or 1.5 whatever footprints there are there. I don't know that we can find that, or I don't know that I can find that, because we're talking about a fairly dense thing here, and some consideration of the massing, I think, should be looked into.
Motion? Are you making a motion to deny?
He said he didn't think he would get a second,
Yeah,
so
he didn't get a second.
I don't think.
Well, you can make the motion and try.
Right.
Unless you want to feel like.
That just makes for good TV, really.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
I would like to make a motion to approve case 025, including the 8 criteria that the Planning Commission has. It meets our requirements to approve a special exception.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve with conditions as expressed by the Planning Commission and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
4-1.
Passes.
All right, case is approved on a vote of 4-1 against. The next case is case 2015-27, Mr. Trent Rozelle, the appellant and owner of the property located at 1200 Ashwood Street, requesting a variance in the required street setbacks on Ashwood and 12th South
It's next to a church.
to construct a new single-family residence at a two-story, let me try it again, a two-floor single-family residence. Am I right on that? Okay. At 3,300 square feet with a 550 square foot attached garage. Referred to the board under section 1712-030. The appellant has alleged jurisdiction under section 1740-180, item B. There is no opposition present. This case, contrasting to the one we just had, this is a single-family residence, so it is a variance standard. This is the subject property which you see at the intersection of 12th and Ashwood. 12th is a collector street, and that is bringing about the necessary variance on 12th is a 20-foot side setback there. There's also a 5-foot setback on the west side, so that takes 25 feet of this lot. There's also a variance requested for the street setback on Ashwood. Next slide will show the the proposed setbacks. The required setback out on Ashwood is 33.4 feet. Based on the average of the four nearest closest homes, it does take into account this home here, which pushes the average back as compared to these other four. And then so this shows the average setback based on Ashwood, and this is what they're proposing with a variance request. And then approximately about 10 feet off of 12th Avenue South. 20 is what's required. And if I recall, is it approximately the location of the existing structure footprint?
Right.
What's there now? Okay.
Yeah.
I'd mentioned that to one of the members. I want to make sure I didn't mischaracterize that. But this is a view of the subject property from Ashwood looking north. 12th Avenue is on the right-hand side. This is the current structure on the property. And then the view up the hill on Ashwood. Ashwood goes uphill toward the 911 center, the emergency center there at the top of the hill. You see the tower and the view on 12th. And then across 12th Avenue, this is right where 12th Avenue narrows and turns into 12th South District. And then a view in the bottom right photograph of some homes under construction there on the south side of Ashwood. We'll leave it there. With that, I'll turn it over to you guys. You'll have 10 minutes.
Joey, I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
If you were to take out that anomaly house, the one that's set back so far, going third from the back, what would the setback be?
The easy answer, I don't know the math. I can
Or just how far? Tell me how far the next two houses are.
I would say that the next two houses that are coming toward the subject property as you're heading east on Ashwood sit approximately 12 feet in front of that home. That home is an outlier.
We're asking for 24 feet. Is that going to be for those?
It would be within the tolerance. It'd be about 9 feet on Ashwood that's getting pulled away from Ashwood because of that home. So if that home were not in the average, they would comply with the setback there on Ashwood. So if I took that home out of the average and I just averaged the other homes.
So the standard now is the four closest houses
It
on
used to
that
be
side?
just yes, sir, on that side of the street. It used to be just the houses on either side, and the council's now amended that to the next four closest residences on the same side of the road. Now our office will throw out true outliers where they're just ridiculously back. These generally we're going to throw into the average, but
Okay, so what about the side street setback? What's
the side street on 12th, the zoning code allows them to cut their setback in half. Normally, it would be a 40-foot setback off of 12th because 12th is a collector or arterial street, and they're allowed to cut that down by code to 20. But the existing home sits 10 now, and that's what they're proposing to put it back in the same footprint.
I'm sorry, the existing home sits where?
10.
10.
Yes, and that's what they're proposing, to put it back on the same footprint. There's no protection for them in single family that allows them to tear the structure down. Once the structure's gone, you have to fully comply with the code. There's no grandfathering to set back.
But they could renovate this home and do all kinds of stuff with this home and not ask for any of this.
You could renovate, repair up to 50% of the value of the structure before you have to come in compliance. All right. With that, I'll turn it over to you guys, and if you.
My name's Trent Rozelle, property owner. This is my wife Liz. Builder Ashley Quinn. I think you did a really good job of explaining what we're asking for. There's basically we went into design process last year, and then the codes changed on us, where it's now the 4 average of the street, and that kind of put us back. So we went in, requested a variance, and then we found out about this side variance, and the side variance is really the big issue right now. Is if we're not allowed to build in the footprint of the existing house, it's gonna cut the lot in half. You're gonna have a very narrow house on that lot if we can't get that setback.
Okay. Joey stepped away from the desk, but I thought Joey said that they were allowed to cut the side in half. Or is 20 the half?
20's half, yeah.
Gotcha. Please ignore my comment. But now it sits at 10.
Right. The current house is built in 1930, and obviously the 12th became a collector way after that. So that's what we're going for. Is just coming back in the same place that it's in.
And you chose to tear down the house instead of renovate the house?
Yeah, the bones of the house, really the foundation, it's in pretty bad shape right now. It was renovated in 2003, and either some water or anyway, it's the bones of the house aren't that good right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's neither here nor there. I mean, you have a right to tear it down, but I mean, I go by it a lot, and it just doesn't appear to be one of those that's fallen in like many in the neighborhood.
No, I like it. It's a good looking house for sure, but the problem with it is the inside and underneath it, quite honestly, rather than the outside appearance.
So, and you two are planning to live in the home? Is that?
Yeah, it's for us. It's
Family home.
family home. It's only 1,000 square feet right now, and we want to have a family, and 1,000 square feet is kind of tight for that.
So how many square feet is the proposed addition?
It's going to be an attached garage and a connector, and it'll bring it up to about 3,300 square feet total, which is right within the codes for square footage per acreage.
So is this lot really narrower than the other lots on the street?
Yeah, due to the curvature at both Ashwood and the alley, it brings your effective building area a lot less than the other ones on the street. You've also got a big retaining wall in that side setback. I don't know if you can really tell. Can't really tell it's behind those shrubs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand the point about it being narrow in terms of building area, because the building that you all propose is 100% within the widest part of the lot. So I guess I'm not sure how those two curved sides impact that point.
I was just responding to the question of if it was narrower than the adjacent lots.
So you're proposing to build triple what's there now, right?
Yeah.
And then how do we define the hardship?
The front one seems a little more clear-cut with the outlier and the fact that the design was started when the standard was the two adjacent properties. Obviously, you don't have one on one side, so you go with a minimum of 20 feet. Averaging that with the property to the west, we would be within what we're requesting now for the front. To me, that one seems a little more clear-cut than the side. I think allowing the 10-foot side setback is going to give you a wider house. It's more consistent with the character of the other homes on Ashwood. If it's denied, I think their coverage is still okay. They're going to have to go back and redesign, and you're going to end up with a skinny 25-foot, two-story house that's going to stand out a little more on the street, in my opinion.
And this is designed as a two-story house?
Yes.
Obviously, it has to be, or wouldn't it be 3,200?
Right.
You want a 25.7 foot setback on the front. Do you know how far or how that relates to the two houses next to it? Will it be in front of those two houses or behind those two houses? Or the same?
I think it's the same, within a foot.
Is the site
I don't know if
plan?
you can see it's got the distance to each of those houses. It doesn't actually have the houses, but it has the distance for each house.
Oh, there you go.
See that?
Thank you. Joey, show me that setback again. No, I'm sorry, the proposed. Proposed is 25, and then, so it would be in front of both of those houses by foot and by 5 feet.
That sounds right.
Mr. Taylor, that plan that you're looking at, does that show the existing front setback of this subject property?
This was something that I guess you all had submitted. It looks like it came from the letter and it's a survey, and it says that your existing home to the porch is 26.3 feet. The house next door is 31.7, 27, 47.6, that's the outlier. And then the next one is 27.3.
Okay.
So you guys would be closer to the street than any of your neighbors.
We'd basically be moving 7 inches closer to the street than what's currently on the lot, 26.3 to 25.7.
Yeah, because
But that's just to the front porch. I mean, but do you all have I guess you don't have an elevation for us to really know, and there's...
We've got some elevations with us, but that's the same thing. It's to the front porch in the new plan as well as the current.
Would you share the elevation?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that does make a big difference. I mean, if it's a porch that you can see through, that's much different than...
Do you have the elevation on there?
Okay.
Like the front facade.
According to my superior math skills, if you eliminate the outlier, what we're calling the outlier, the 47.6, I get an average of 28.6, 28.7. Did you catch that, David?
I'm sorry, what?
If you take out the 47.6 foot and average the other three, I get 28.7 feet. Would be the average of those other three.
How far is your garage to the back setback? Is it sitting right on it?
Yeah, that's what's pushing the house forward. It's, I believe it's 20 feet. Yeah, that's what's on there, 20 feet.
And that's required because it's an attached garage. If it were detached, it'd only be 10.
10, that's right.
I'd like to revise my earlier statement. It's 27.5. For those of you playing along at home.
Is this living space over the garage? What is the?
It's a future in-law suite.
VRBO.
This is really a 3-story house,
There's attic, unimproved attic space.
but you have a dormer, a very large dormer.
That's purely aesthetic.
How tall is the roof line from, what's the height of the 3rd floor versus the 2nd and 3rd and 1st floor?
Get something that shows that roof slope. That should give a. Let me see that. There's no dimensions given, but overall height appears to be 32 feet from the highest point, which would be the front yard.
So are there 8-foot ceilings in this attic?
9-foot ceilings.
Okay.
Yeah. If I could just comment, another feature integral to the design was obviously 12th Avenue is a busy street, it's a very loud street. They're planning on having kids, and you can see the way that it's designed, encroaching in that setback, leaves that little bit of a courtyard on the west side, giving a buffer of both noise and privacy from 12th Avenue. And if they were to have to adhere to that 20-foot and end up with just one shotgun, 25-foot wide house, their lot would then be the remaining setback on the east side of the property, and they'd be foregoing their privacy and their noise protection for their yard space. Does that make sense?
Looks like a tremendous amount of house on the lot to me.
It is within the lot coverage requirements for that district.
Can I see the picture of the current residence, please?
Yeah, my concern is the front setback more than the side setback because of the existing residence. And, and my concern isn't, I think we're close, but I don't really like that it's in front of all the other options. And I do think it's based on the choices of the home. And I think the choices are great for the family. I think it's really nice to have an attached garage, but that's a choice. If you didn't have the attached garage, then you could push the house back, 5 feet and have the garage back there and it'd be fine. But how do you make it work? And, and I think David Harper had said that, and I think I just did, when I add up the 4 houses, including the current home, not counting the outlier, they're 28 feet off the road. You're asking for 25.7. I mean, I'm in some ways it seems like, you're bickering over 2 feet, but there is something about having it kind of at least line up with one of the houses next to it that's attractive to me. And so I guess I'm interested to know what does that 2 feet really mean? And if we said instead of 25.7, it was 27.7, then what does that do to you?
We'd probably lose it off the connector, which means it'll be a smaller yard for us. Unless we could get a variance on the back and only be 18 feet off the alley instead of 20. And then we can push the whole thing back. Oh, and we can just push the whole thing back.
And Joey, would they have to resubmit to do that?
A different variance.
Yeah, it's a different variant.
Oh, as far as adding a rear setback?
Yeah.
Variance, yes, sir. We'd have to have a different hearing on the rear setback.
I would also add, just to comment on that, if you keep on going for this whole block on the very top, I don't have what that setback is, but those 2 houses that just got added at the top of the street are right at 25 feet as well. So if you took the whole average, they bring the whole street closer.
You mean the HPR on the western corner?
Yep. On the left-hand side of the photograph shown.
And members, when we get into a situation where we do toss an outlier, we do go on and add the next home. If I've got another home, I go get that one. So I get my 4. And I didn't know if, David, with your superior math skills, if you factored in a 25 there.
I hope you're talking about Harper.
Yes.
No, I don't want
Self-proclaimed math skills.
Self-proclaimed master of mathematics. My math teacher knows, God rest her soul, she knows that.
What was the answer to, or did you guys ask, what's above the garage? I'm sorry.
In-law suite.
So is that in the square, that's bonus
Yeah.
over garage?
That's part of the square footage.
Okay,
It's part of 33.
okay, thanks.
So I know, just to reiterate, I know it doesn't matter at this point because the rules have changed, but it used to be the average of the 2 adjacent homes. And so the one next to us is, 27? And since there's no home to the east, it would revert to 20, so the average would have been 23.5, and that's when we started this design. So we were actually back a couple feet already, and then here we are after spending the money on the architect and the rules change. And I know that's sort of our risk that we take, but we weren't pushing the max at that point in time. We were just trying to make it work.
See the elevations here. And you did say, I mean, the reality of the current home is 26.3 and you're asking for 25.7, so you really are asking for, yeah, based on what, now the home that's there, the porch doesn't span the whole section.
The porch goes across the front of the home.
Yeah, you just can't tell because he never trims those bushes, but it goes all the way.
Yeah,
It goes all the way.
Would you lose the tree?
Yeah, well, yeah, the plan is to
So
take
if you
the
go
tree down.
forward, you're losing the tree.
Well, it's not because of the
Either
variance.
way,
We
the-
want to take the tree down regardless.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a hackberry tree. It's not a very good tree.
Yeah. Messy tree.
It's a
People rarely
dangerous
use the
tree.
word hackberry and tree in the same sentence.
A nicer tree will be going back there.
John Michael, are you
Tree guy
seem to
over
be
here
hating on the hackberry?
Yeah, the only folks that don't like my hackberry tree are NES. They keep coming trimming it on the alley.
Send them my way.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What?
You need to add anything further? We're going to close the public hearing.
Oh, no.
All right, close the public
Done. Case 27's
questions.
I'm not sold on hardship. I'd like to be educated otherwise. They who?
Repeat that.
Your microphone wasn't on.
I said,
Repeat
I
that.
am not yet sold. There's a hardship, but I'm happy to be educated otherwise.
Yeah, I don't, on the front setback, and it really is a matter of inches, and I could kind of go either way on that, but it's a completely different beast. You know, they're not tearing down and putting, if they were tearing this down and putting back, you know, a clone of what's there, they would still have to ask us for this. And I would be, I think, a whole lot more forgiving or giving, I guess. But they're putting a lot more on the property. And, you know, it's not just a matter of the dimensions in the plan view. You know, there's a three-dimensional aspect to all this, and they're just putting a lot more on the property. And even along 12th, I mean, it's a completely different beast. I mean that figuratively. I'm not, no insult to the plan.
I guess I sort of would maybe go along with what David was saying earlier in that I'm less troubled by the side setback because of what's there. But putting the garage there is a choice that they don't have to do. And it seems to be a lot of building. I understand it's within the requirement, but the choices they're making with the garage seem to me simply that, a choice.
Yeah, again, I mean, to argue over 7 inches is, or, you know, my math is right. It may seem trivial, but there is a little bit of principle that says that if you are going to tear something down, it's fair enough to build something back on the at least within the constraints of the existing footprint. Although, you know, they're using a lot more yard, but nothing on the back part of their plans. You know, I ask for any more setback than exists. I mean, they're not asking for a rear setback. In fact, they're conforming to the detached garage actually costs them space, or, you know, the attached garage, and it is a choice. But I don't, like I said, I'm more inclined to just say, well, if it's 26.3 feet from the street where the current house is, then they basically are putting it back where it was, even though it's a whole lot bigger. I do think it's an example of trying to get the absolute most you can out of a piece of property, but every case we see now is trying to do that too. So I can't say I blame them for that. It's a nice looking house, you know, and you know, I don't know. It's in terms of hardship. The narrowness of the lot on the collector street with an existing historical home, I get the front.
But, you know, when we talk about it, unique conditions, or, you know, like what you just said, like as far as what's along Ashwood, it's, to me, no different. And in the same token, you know, I dare say that, I could be wrong, but I doubt the properties along 12th that, you know, create a side setback on that same collector are any different than this property. I mean, I don't know that is unique.
I'm not sure what you're...
Well, I'm saying that along Ashwood, all these properties appear to be about the same width. So it's not unique in that sense. And I don't think it's unique because it's on a collector street, because all the other properties like this along that collector street have the same thing.
Yeah, so you're looking at like the house on Lawrence.
I mean,
as well.
if this were a pork chop lot or a wedge, that's different, you know. But if every property in the
So you're saying you
neighborhood
don't have a
were
problem
pie
with
shape,
it, so you don't have a problem with the side setback?
I don't find the hardship, is what I'm saying. And what is the side setback they're asking for?
The same as what
10.
it is. It's sitting on 10, they're asking for 10.
Yeah, I think it's yes.
But you know, they're not putting what's there 10 feet. They're putting something a lot bigger.
I
10
know,
feet.
but if we don't, but without the side setback, we bump them in and it just goes taller.
So they could keep the 10 feet if they just renovated the inside of the house, right, Joey?
But they could only add 500 square feet.
Right.
Right.
Let me be sure.
They could add a second floor, and then they could add 50% more of the.
For the value.
Yeah, if you add more than 50% square footage, you got to.
Then the new laws kick in.
Right. Look, in a sense, this might sound contradictory to itself, but I'm not necessarily opposed to either setback. But I don't see a hardship. Therefore, you can't give them the variance.
Well, we've had houses, before that, where there was a case that we heard, a Sylvan Park case, where the homeowner tore down the home because it was in bad shape and wanted to build back on the exact same footprint. But because you tear down the home and you have to start over, they were going to be forced, and it was kind of a square lot. It wasn't a rectangular lot like this. They were going to be forced into some really strange place.
But isn't the case in that situation, you said they built on the same footprint, though?
Well, they built on the same footprint. I think that had they wanted to go.
But I think it was kind of the same footprint, same size house, too. Was it that much bigger?
It was a two-story versus one.
Yeah, they had a one-story home, and they had doubled the size of their home, but it wasn't. I don't think it was this big. And it's. I'm saying it's similar. I'm not saying it's the same thing. And we said it was kind of a unique situation, and they're building on the same footprint. I'm not making that exact argument, but I'm saying that we have had cases where we have said no. When you tear something down and rebuild. You shouldn't necessarily be penalized by that.
And I agree with that, which I think that is general. It's just a nuance of the way our code is written, and maybe it's not unique to other codes, but it would seem common sense that if you tear something down, you should be able to put it back. I mean, but this is really not what we're talking about in this situation. The only reason we're talking about what's existing versus what they want is really a point of reference, and that is about the extent of it in my mind. In the plan view, the bird's eye view of this, the dimensions would be similar at the corner. Other than that, all that aside, again, I still go back to the hardship, and we have 5 people or so. I'm easily voted down. You guys might accept the hardship argument, and that's fine. That's why we vote. But I just don't personally see a hardship.
Well, I'd have a much tougher time if it were trying to put two pieces, two homes on, where you're really trying to, if you have a single family going to single family, the side setback is the same setback that's already there. It's similar to what, the other streets are. It's just not like you're trying, I don't know.
Well, actually, this will be two residents.
To me, the side setback is not a case of trying to cram too much on the lot, which I think is a concern that people have expressed. To me, the side setback is, well, that's kind of where the current house is, where other houses are. The front setback, I kind of go back and forth on, but when I look at what they're trying to do, the front setback is, I think it's a fairly substantial porch, and I think visually it may not appear to be as dominant as that extra, foot or 8 inches, whatever that we're talking about, might make it look. So, do I wish that, do I wish they would renovate the existing house and keep the tree? Probably, but if they're not going to do that, I don't know. I'm having less trouble with it than I originally thought I might.
Well, I look at it, I was just sitting here thinking that, when we vote on these things, that, I would like to think that that's it, and it's agreeable and workable for everybody, but I was just thinking, okay, let's say some misguided person here decided to vote, besides me, 2 people decided to vote against this, and, they appealed it. My first thought would be that the judge looking at, or the chancellor would be like, why are we arguing over inches? Then I thought, actually, no, they wouldn't be talking about that at all. They would be looking at us and saying, why didn't you follow your rules? And what is the hardship you found? And again, whoever makes the motion can say, here's the hardship, and then I can vote for or against it. But I've yet to hear a compelling hardship. And I understand forget it's bigger than it was, it's cramming, it's not cramming. I don't buy the hardship presented so far.
I tend to agree with you about the hardship. I'm just, I guess, like David says, beautiful house. It really is. But it's.
I agree. It's lovely.
There's a way to build this house. I'm not even saying that they get like no variance, but within a more reasonable setback.
Are you talking about front setback?
I'm actually talking about the side more than the front, because the front's at 7 inches. That, to me,
right.
You probably can't even notice that if you look at it, particularly as it deals with a porch.
Okay, but on the side, again, if we squish them, if they're allowed to build on the side where it is, then that just allows them to stay this way on the footprint. If we deny and find a hardship because it's on an arterial street, if we deny a variance request as to the front, it doesn't really affect their plan that much. They may have to come back. They may have to make some decisions about the garage, but they can come back and ask for a variance off the back.
No, I understand.
They choose to do that.
Well, I understand that, but there are many choices that you can take, even coming here or not coming here. The existing structure, they obviously have submitted something and they want us to rule on it, and we will. But there were other ways, and that's why I think this side is more kind of interested in hardship, because since there are more things that you could have done to comply with the code or even be smaller, because let's face it, a lot of times when you talk about a variance, we talk about the size of the structure within the setback. So it's not just that the setback is 10 feet versus 12 feet versus 20 feet. It's how much structure is within that setback that we're giving the variance to, and it's a huge addition of square footage in the setback.
Good point.
I mean, you could argue that, their side setback now is 11 feet because there's such a tiny, there's only 8.5 feet of the house that sticks out 2 feet. So, in essence, the house, is really closer to 12 feet setback now.
But you're talking about as it is right now.
As it is right now. I'm just saying, as a point of reference into what you said, how much is in that setback. To me, if this house were to come up as a new house and there was 8.5 feet along that setback that sticks in there, more than a foot, I would be like, really, that's not even, just let that go.
Okay, to get off dead center.
I think if I was trying to think what a possible hardship would be, and you may not agree, but I think that from the testimony, the hardship would be the condition of the existing home, which, and again, I'm not, from the outside, I don't see it, but I know there are many homes that from the outside look beautiful and they're completely termite ridden and have problems, but we were given testimony that there was structural issues with the home. And I think that if to renovate or rebuild was, I'm just saying, I'm not, that I think is a potential hardship if you were to pull something from testimony. And
it would really have to be structurally unsound and termite ridden for me to be a hardship or the structure.
And that's fair enough.
I don't remember us ever, since I've been on this board, declaring the condition of a home being a hardship as far as letting someone build in the setback.
Well, I was just referring back to the Sylvan Park home that was torn down because, if I remember it correctly, was torn down because it was in, the foundation was in such rotten shape that they couldn't use that. They basically had to replace it, and it was best to tear down. And again,
I think that was their decision to tear it. It still probably could have been fixed. I was on the Historic Zoning Commission for 6 years, and the only time we let a house be torn down, and very sadly, my colleagues on the board let this house being torn down. They still didn't want it, but it was built, it had termites, and it had a wooden foundation, which no one had ever seen before.
I'm going to offer a motion. I move that we deny the request based on the lack of hardship.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed?
no. I would
So we have
4-1.
4-1 to deny. Okay.
Joey, we voted 4-1 to deny. I think he had a question for you.
Okay, yeah, I'll talk to him after introduce the next case. Let me introduce this final case, and then we'll discuss. Okay, my final case is case 2015-28. Mr. Gregory Becker, the appellant owner of the property located at 4410 Nevada. Mr. Becker, come on up. Mr. Becker, there's no opposition to this case, and I need to explain this case in a little more detail, so I'll stay up here. But this request is an item D request, and it's a addition to a non-conforming structure. Rick, if you'll speed up, go ahead and move up to this case. Long story short, what happened, Mr. Becker came to see us to take out a permit to renovate what we believed to be his residence. We issued the permit to renovate his residence. We, as a department, and Mr. Becker did not have a meeting of the minds, as they say. Mr. Becker's intent was to renovate the rear yard structure at the back of the property. He got underway, and we had renovation to re-roof. Obviously, he's done some work beyond the scope of that. This structure came to us and said, hey, I think we have an issue. And I went and visited the site, and this is what I found. Obviously, what we issued the permit for and what has gone on are two different things. But the long and short of it is this structure, Mr. Becker believes, and my records don't indicate, and I'm not disputing that it may not have been a second residence, but there were clearly in the original structure a flat roof structure that had a kitchen in it. It did have living quarters. He has affidavits that he's going to submit in as evidence from neighbors saying, yeah, there was someone that lived here for years and years. And I told him, ultimately, besides you guys today, he needs to convince Mr. Herbert, the zoning administrator, that this is a second dwelling to be able to ultimately put the kitchen in and the shower facility.
But this would be considered a guest house, right?
It would be essentially a guest house.
But I remember the late Sonny West, who this room is named after, he always used to say if it was a carriage house or another unit before, was it 1937?
Yes, sir.
So is there anyone around that?
There's no one around in Metro that would know that. He has some documentations he'd like to submit to you, and I told him it's important to go on and turn them in for the record purposes.
Okay.
Essentially, what's before you guys are the alterations he's made to that structure, constructing this roof frame on it. Next photograph will show, he basically went down, as you see the back of the structure here, that was the original roof line. As you see the difference between the two, the new construction. He basically dropped down about 5 courses of block and then built these sidewalls and then the pitch to match the house of the residents.
So the higher block wall is the old height?
Is the old height, yes, sir. And it was a flat roof building. And I talked to the district council member out there, Mr. Holloman. He is supportive of Mr. Becker's request. He believed it to be an older second residence as well. I just could not find any evidence, not to say that we may not have it, but I could not find anything that listed as a second dwelling. So the dwelling part really is more Mr. Herbert's discussions with him in the normal course of business with the codes department. But what's before you are the alterations he's made to that structure. The structure is grandfathered in its location on the property. It sits in the rear setback. The street setback off of 44th is fine. That part's fine. But the non-conforming part is its location within the rear setback. This is the alley at the back of the property, so you see how close it is to the rear property line now.
So we're deciding if it is
You're deciding,
more or less non-conforming than,
yes, or
than
whether
before.
it's more or less compatible with the surrounding properties in the neighborhood
Gotcha.
and the existing structure up front. So it's really, you're talking more structural with him, the changes that have occurred. We clearly made a mistake between both of us. What he wanted to do and what we typed up were clearly two different things. But you see the part in here. I've been inside the structure. I mean, it's very nice, well done. There's some kitchen facilities and shower facilities that he and Mr. Herbert's got to talk about, which may or may not remain.
So originally, this was just supposed to be an outbuilding, like a garage or something?
That's the only records
Metro.
I could find that showed it as garage, but even our oldest record was in the late 60s, and this structure's clearly older than that. So I don't know, but he does, as Mr. West would have allowed affidavits from adjoining landowners who have been there years and years saying, yeah, it's been rented, yes, it's been. The service, the one thing that we do, which is usually demonstrative for us, is go to NES and ask for the meter. Its meter was tied to the house meter. It did not have a separate meter system, so.
But it did have electricity?
It definitely had electricity. So really your focus today is the alterations to the grandfathered structure. He has not exceeded 50% of the footprint of it. You saw the change that he's made there. It just has to come here to seek approval. And as I said, the council member's supportive. I believe he's got letters and such that he's going to hand me, and I'll pass to you here in a second.
Please tell us again, what exactly are we trying to approve?
It's an addition to a non-conforming structure. So whether or not this addition is compatible with the surrounding.
So are we assuming that the non-conforming structure doesn't change? I mean, if he were renting it, that's between y'all two.
It'll be between the coast department and him.
It's not, but all we're saying is if whatever this building was before and whatever it is now, it's.
You'd be approving the alterations to the structure as a structure, not as a use.
But not whether, yeah.
Just the volume of this thing.
Joey, how does
don't
this?
focus on use. Now, he may, ultimately the codes department may decide that it's not a house, and he can come appeal that to you based on evidence yes, it was a house. But
So on some of these designs that you've given us, it's called the main structure?
yeah,
Because the reason I ask that, isn't there a rule in certain neighborhoods that basically a secondary structure can't be more than a certain height of the original?
There's some restrictions in the R districts, and this one is not a zoning district that permits a second dwelling on a lot because it's zoned for single family only. So you can only get the new detached accessory dwelling units that have been passed by the council.
So we're not approving a dwelling
You're not
per se.
approving use
We would just,
of the structure.
use. We would just be.
Just the alterations structurally.
And then, like you said, Mr. Herbert and he would have to
Right.
decide what.
And that decision is appealable, whatever comes by a neighbor or.
But what you're saying is the height is not a problem compared to the original structure.
The height itself, No, I don't believe that, let's say if this were a new construction, it would violate the height of a detached building in this neighborhood. It would violate the rear setback, obviously, where it's sitting. But no, it's not, quote unquote, too tall for UZO.
Okay.
It's not that at all. It's just because of the old structure and the flat roof where it sat and its location on the property was grandfathered, any alterations to that structure have to come here, and we didn't, because we misunderstood what his work was on. So. But here are the affidavits, and I would like to submit those to you guys to look at. That affidavit does talk about guest house and such, but I want him, for record purposes, to put it in. Oh, yeah. I was explaining to Mr. Becker, if I show those to you, those are not his photographs. They are neighbors who said, here's some pictures of the old structure. If I show those to you, I have to retain them for 60 days. He may not, they're not his to give away. So I said, that's why I wanted to avoid use question today.
Sure. Okay.
So this is, I'm going to ask you before he gets started,
Sure.
so I don't want in any way to tell them how to testify. But this is essentially a really straightforward issue. We are to decide if the structure itself, the change to the structure is
appropriate. That's it.
That's the essence of it.
You've had these cases come before you obviously before we got this far.
Right.
In the normal course of business, he would have came and asked, and we'd heard it, and you issued a permit on it. Our office clearly misunderstood where he was working.
Right.
And once we discovered, we quickly went out there and stopped work on it, and to get it to this point, what you see here. That's all I have, Mr. Becker. It's all yours to explain. If you have any questions, we may have covered just about everything.
Just push the red button there, or the black button, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, Joey pretty much covered it. I guess if you have any questions, I'll answer them.
Well, so the existing footprint of the structure, were the addition that you've done, is it all within the original footprint?
Yeah, basically it was like a flat roof. You can see on that other picture better than this one. It was like about 14 feet or so. And so what we wanted to do was just put a gable roof on. So we went in and got the permit to do that. And the idea was that we would put a little workspace for me up top there when we did the roof, which we told them also we were going to do. And we went down some of the block to make it a lower ceiling in the bottom and have enough space upstairs. So it was just a little bit more room, so the roof didn't come all the way to the floor.
So when I'm looking at the plan is in this picture, the little it looks like there's a dimension that says 15 feet off to the side of the. I'm looking at this drawing.
Oh, okay.
So the little rectangle here below it, is that what we're looking at, where there's no roof on this?
Yeah, that's like the deck on the back. It's like an open deck now.
Okay, that's accessible from?
The backyard. It's not accessible from inside. You
okay.
could go up some stairs in the back.
Okay. Oh, that's what this 3D drawing in the back was about. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I had a question about use, and so it's not applicable. I was going to ask you about the second floor, but it really doesn't matter.
So, I know you've obviously talked to your neighbors about the use issue, which we're not talking about, but have your neighbors been supportive of what you're doing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody's. Oh, yeah. I passed around. I got a bunch of signatures from everybody.
They haven't reached me yet.
Looks like you've signed up everybody.
Yeah.
Well done.
Well, we had the snowstorm, so we got to go out and see everybody.
You had them
Captive
trapped.
neighbors.
Yeah, everybody's pretty on board. I mean, there's some pretty wild things happening in Sylvan Park, as you can imagine, on some of the alleys. And this, my wife and I take care to make it look really, to fit in, which is why we wanted to do that big gable roof rather than the flat roof, because everybody's got 45-degree pitches on their roof. And when we renovated the house that we're living in now, it was the same thing. It was like ready to get knocked over, and we love old homes, and we like to keep them like they are as much as we can. Why we didn't want to tear any of the block down or anything, and try to keep it looking like it, like it fit.
So in these affidavits or these statements that people submitted, it just randomly looks a lot better than what was there. Build away. The Beckers have improved this structure. They have done amazing renovations, so on and so forth.
And what struck me too is the longevity of the people. There was 22 years, 55 years, all these 40-something years, people that have been living over there for quite a long time.
Our neighbor actually was born in the house, so he's 76, and he's known it since he was born, and it's pretty amazing. The guy across the street's been there 63 years. Woody, living behind us, has been there like 37 years, so people have known it for a long time.
Any other questions? Anything else to add?
No, sir.
Close the public hearing. Discussion.
Our item D criteria, I believe, is it more or less non-conforming, and to me, within that 50%, in terms of, I know some of that goes to use because but he's not, whatever the use is between the owner and codes is not changing. And so, I think that to me it's certainly no more non-conforming.
I agree. And I'm really moved by the number of people immediately around this structure that you got and that are enthusiastically in favor of what you have done.
Yeah, my neighbor was here too, but she had to go pick up her son from school.
Well, and it clearly is a nice job. You got nice compliments from Joey, and the coach people that have seen it really like it. It's just the issues that you're left with is between you and codes. But so I would move that this meets the requirements of an item D appeal and that we approve this appeal.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. You win.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Joey.
All right, you're welcome. And with that, Board of Zoning Appeals is adjourned. Thank you all, and I appreciate it's been a pleasure working with you guys, and hopefully I'll see you in the future.
Yeah, we're going to miss you, Joey. Thank you for everything you have done for us and making our jobs a lot easier. Our volunteer jobs, as you said.